What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Here we are, episode number 25 for the Boxing Lowdown podcast. And you know how we do it. Myself, the Boxing Lowdown here, as always, joined by my co-host, Mr. Laurie from AFTV.
That's my little tribute to Dillian, man. You know what I mean? That big left hook, you could see the way he was. He had that.
Yeah.
Boy.
What's happening? What's going on? What's the latest, man?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm at the AFTV studio. I'm upstairs in the studio. It's a bit quieter up here. And looking forward to what you got to throw at me, man. You know what I mean? Get at me. What you got to tell me this week?
Listen, we've got another packed week, as always, man. Last few weeks have been packed. We've got another good episode on our hands this week. And do you know what I mean? As always, I have to say it at the beginning of every podcast. But for those tuning in, please make sure you like the video. Please make sure you share, subscribe to the channel. It's important that you like the video to try and raise awareness so we could get more views on this podcast. Share the video, let your friends know. Anybody that's in the chat, want to leave a comment, we'll happily respond to any comments along the way. And yeah, appreciate you all for coming in and showing the support. So let's keep it moving. We've got another week on our hands. Let's do this. We've got some comments already. I want to shout out Jar Bunny, a long-time friend of mine. He's put, I think you need to get the Rocky music for these combos. I need to get some sort of music or some soundbite or something. Definitely need to get that. Big up my bro Mohammed Zishan in the chat here. This guy designs my thumbnails. Do you know what I mean? You know, regular contributor to the channel, always leaves his comments. He's ready to go. He's put let's go. He's ready. So let's get straight into it, man. He's put
let's go, Dante. Let's go. Let's go.
He's put the fire emojis there. He's ready. I'm ready. You're ready. Let's get straight into it, man. Episode number 25, the Boxing Lowdown podcast. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Now, what do you want to talk about first? You want to talk about Dillian Whyte first? You want to talk about the fight this weekend first?
Let's talk about Dillian, man. It's only fair that we should recap what was a great moment for Dillian. I was genuinely made up for him. I was a little bit worried going into this fight because, you know, we all saw what happened to him back in August at the hands of Povetkin, possibly knockout of the year for 2020. I don't know. But you know what? Fair play to Dillian. He dusted himself down, accepted the loss like a man, demanded an immediate rematch. He got the rematch. And I was a little bit worried for him because, you know, you're thinking that the same thing might happen again. But he told us he was in better shape this time. He was prepared. And then he was going to do a number on Povetkin. And that's the way it turned out. So I'm happy for it, man.
Yeah, going into this rematch, Dillian Whyte admitted to himself, you know, he said it on IFL in an interview that, you know, he wasn't scared, but he said that he did have a bit of pressure on him, you know, obviously to overturn the result in the first fight. And, you know, it was the ring entrance for one. He was pumped up, Dillian Whyte was, man. He was ready to go. And I have to tip my hat off to him for the way how he approached the rematch. I mean, one of my concerns going into this rematch was the fact that Dillian had been flattened on his back, despite winning the first fight comfortably. He was ahead on all the cards, dropped Povetkin down, and despite that, still managed to find a way to lose it. So my concern going into this rematch was that how was Dillian going to approach Povetkin, considering that the guy knocked him out in the first fight like that? And, you know, the way how he approached it was just, you know, great for me. Went straight after Povetkin, no playing around. Povetkin buckled in the first round, and Dillian Whyte was all over him. Like, he just eliminated all those ghosts of what happened in the first fight and just thought, let's have a tear up. I'm not in this to try and, like, you know, box cute and go on the back foot. Nah, you knocked me out the first time. If I'm going to get knocked out again, I'm going out on my shield. And fair play to him. That's what the fans like to see. So I like how Dillian Whyte approached this fight, and ultimately he got the result that he wanted. A round quicker as well.
Yeah, listen, man, enough respect to Dillian. He said what he was going to do, and he did it. And listen, it's all the more impressive when you consider that, like you said, he got it done in a quicker job than what he was knocked out. But I don't care who you are and how confident you sound, there must have been in the back of his mind, even though he probably won't admit it, there must have been a tiny amount of, if not fear, a bit of anticipation, a sort of apprehension, probably. At what had happened the first time, and that he was keen not to allow that to happen again. So for him to go out there, dominate the way he did, and then finish the job like he did, was excellent. And some people are trying to be revisionist and saying things about COVID and making excuses for Povetkin, saying that he was shot and this weren't the same guy, and look at the way he walked to the ring. Listen, man, Povetkin was no more shot this time than he was 6 months ago. You're talking about a 40-year-old fighter. He's had a long career, both as an amateur and a pro. He would have taken a lot of punishment throughout the years. So yes, technically he wasn't nowhere near the level he was earlier on in his career. But you know what? He was coming off a win, a big win at that. So for Dillian to reverse that, we got the same way that we were criticizing Dillian and saying he maybe finished before. Now you've got to be fair to the man and say, listen, man, he righted the wrong. He did it in an emphatic fashion and he's back. So, yeah, fair play to the man. Enough respect.
I agree. I think that if Povetkin was to have won on Saturday night, you wouldn't have seen people talk about COVID then. Do you know what I mean? So Dillian Whyte did what he had to do. He got the revenge that he wanted. Povetkin, I do have to say, and I know I said this in the live stream after the fight, he did seem very off balance. He did seem not really coordinated. There was a bit of unsteadiness to him. You saw the ring walks, for example. I know they're different characters, but Dillian Whyte pumped, jumping up and down, like running, basically wanted to run to the ring almost. Povetkin, cool as a cucumber, just strolling to the ring. But he never really, it just seemed like he didn't really wake up for me. I don't know. Maybe he was forced to be in a backward position from the way how Dillian Whyte approached it. But I don't know. Like, did you not sense that Povetkin was a bit, do you think he was all there on that night?
Yeah, listen, you have to remember, Povetkin is quite an undemonstrative guy. He's quite laconic, isn't he? He's quite laid back. It's when he gets in the ring that the aggression comes out. But if you look at all his fights, his body language is pretty much the same going into the ring. Obviously, he livens up when the bell goes and it's time to go to work, and especially if you hit him. Yeah, you can be quite aggressive then. And he does put a lot of, emphasis into his punches. In that first round, man, yes, Dillian did what he did, but you could see that Povetkin was throwing some haymakers in there, man. Yeah. Both fighters were throwing shots with bad intentions. If you look at the expressions on both of their faces, they were really letting their hands go, man. But I think what happened is that early in the first round, I'm not sure if you noticed it, you probably did, but Dillian landed a shot just behind the ear of Povetkin, and it shook him up a little bit. And I think there's a high probability that his equilibrium would have been scrambled after that shot, which led to him stumbling around the ring in the first round so much. Yeah. Because having taken those shots myself, I know that it does affect your balance a little bit. It kind of discombobulates you a little. Yeah. I think that's what that was. People are saying, he was stumbling around. And yeah, the reason why he was stumbling around, because he got hit to the back of the head. Mm-hmm. So that was the reason for that. I don't think it was because he's 42 years old and shot to pieces. Yes, he did give that impression he was shot because he was so thoroughly beaten. But, at the end of the day, man, he fought 6 months ago. So if he wasn't shot then, we shouldn't sort of say he's shot now why Dillian beat him, innit? Because, it's pretty much the same version of Povetkin. There has been talk about how badly he would be affected by COVID or not. To be fair to Povetkin, I don't think he's come out and said those things, has he?
No, I don't think so, no.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's other people trying to make excuses for him, or people who don't want to give Dillian Whyte his credit. But I'm certainly not going to engage in that. I'll give Dillian full credit. Like I said on your stream after the fight, credit goes out to people like him and Anthony Joshua. You take a bad loss, you dust yourself down, you ask for the rematch, you get back in the ring, and you do your thing on the night. Both those guys did that and resolved it conclusively. Unlike another heavyweight I could care to name, but I won't because you all know what I'm talking about.
Let's go to the comments here. Big up my bro Luke in the chat, man. Run Simbox, very great channel over there. He's put the hate for Dillian Whyte is absurd. When is he going to get the props he deserves? What more can he do? Do you think that Dillian Whyte does get a lot of hate?
Not in this country, but I've noticed watching some of the the YouTube channels across the water, they seem to be very begrudging of Dillian. You know what I mean? For whatever reason, maybe aesthetically he doesn't look the best. He's not the most athletic. He's not the most skillful. But you know what? He gets a lot of love in this country because I think people can appreciate that he's made the most of himself. You know what I mean?
I think he gets quite a bit of Twitter hate on here as well. I think Luke does have a point when he says that.
Okay.
Maybe you don't see it as much. I don't know how often you're on there, but
yeah.
I saw quite a few people from here that wanted Dillian Whyte to lose. I know from the UK. Yeah.
Well, you know what Twitter's like, man. It seems to be a haven for bad-minded and sick people. You know what I mean? So, you know, I don't know what Dillian's done to upset all these people, but most of the people I speak to in boxing seem to have, certainly in this country anyway, seem to have an appreciation for Dillian. They're not saying he's not going to go on anyone's pound-for-pound list anytime soon, but I think he's quite a gregarious character. He's quite an honest man. And I think people like that. And the fact that he's kind of pulled himself up from his bootstraps, as it were. He's led quite a colourful life, as we all know. I'm not going to go into all of that. But you know what? He's made the most of, you know, the attributes he's got. And you can't really ask for more than that in sport, can you? So, you know what? I like Dillian, man. Whether he can go on and be a world champion, now that's an entirely different thing. But you know, let's enjoy him while he's around, man, because he's definitely a character in the sport.
Absolutely, yeah. Going to the comment here. Big up Luke for that comment. Thank you, bro. Mohammed just put here, would you like to see Whyte versus Hunter? Now, the question is for Dillian Whyte, after that win, the realism is that he's not going to get a shot at AJ or Fury anytime soon. They're likely going to have their 2-fight deal, which kind of puts, you know, Dillian Whyte's title shot not happening until 2022 at least. Now, in the meantime, he's going to have to stay active. The heavyweight division has got some quality fighters in there, some great matchups to be made. What do you do if you're Dillian Whyte now? Do you go against Michael Hunter, like what Mohammed says here? Do you go for Trevor Bryan, who has the regular WBA belt? Or do you go for the big fights in Wilder or Ruiz? Or like, what do you do if you're Dillian Whyte to try and, you know, if you're going to be a pay-per-view fighter, there has to be an element of risk. But then at the same time, how risky do you want it? Because you don't want your title shot to go down the drain again. So what do you do if you're Dillian Whyte? Would you want to see Hunter?
I don't think Hunter is a good fight for Dillian, to be honest. I'm just talking about the styles matchup. I'm not sure if that'd be a good fight. That looked like it would be quite awkward. And, you know, Hunter's a very skillful fighter. And let's be honest, he might expose Dillian's shortcomings a little bit. And let's face it, even if he does beat Hunter, I'm not sure if he'll get the credit he deserves for a win like that. So when you talk about risk and reward and stuff like that, I don't think Hunter will be a name that screams out at Dillian. Also, you have to remember as well that Hunter flies very much under the radar for most boxing fans, unless you're like me and you, people like that who are hardcore. But most people wouldn't know Michael Hunter or appreciate him. So even if Dillian does beat him, which that would be no means a certainty, I don't think he'll get much credit for that. Likewise with a Trevor Bryan, he'd probably beat him and end up with a strap, but a lot of people will be saying, well, who was that guy you thought? You know what I mean? But there's one name, man, that screams out at everybody when talking about Dillian's next fight, even the casuals. The one man that everyone seems to be consistent about, they would love to see that fight. And indeed, Dillian's kind of expressed a little bit of wanting that fight too, and that's with Deontay Wilder, man. It's a natural. It's a natural. It's a clash of styles. It's USA versus Britain. You know what I mean? It's a grudge match of all grudge matches. The two hate each other. You've seen the way Dillian's spoken about Wilder. You've seen the way Wilder speaks about Dillian. Apparently, Wilder's said to want the fight. If what we're hearing is true, he DM'd Dillian after the fight saying, yeah, let's go. So, indeed, man, let's go. Let's get it on.
Well, where is Wilder? Do you know what I mean? Like, where is he? There was the talk about him fighting Charles Martin. That's kind of disappeared for now. The Fury situation appears to, you know, it looks like that they're going to find a resolution for that. Maybe Wilder might get some compensation for it. But, I mean, Wilder's been out of the ring now since February last year. So that's 14 months. No fight scheduled. I can't see him fighting Dillian Whyte next.
Well, it would be a very dangerous fight for him, but he might be looking at it like he needs someone like Dillian Whyte to get him up for the challenge. Because to be fair to Deontay Wilder, once you've been champion for as long as he did with so many defenses, and you've lost your title, you do have to be a bit cognizant of who your first fight back is going to be against.
Yeah.
Now, it might be that he's reasoning that if he picks somebody that's too low down the pecking order, somebody that he might have trouble getting up for and getting properly motivated for, he could turn in either a bad performance or possibly even, God forbid, a losing performance. So someone like Dillian might get his juices going to think, well, listen, you know what? This is going to be a real fight. It's a big fight. It's a pay-per-view potential fight. Lots of people are going to be watching. I've got to be on my game. You know what I mean? So he might be approaching it with that kind of mindset. As well as he might do, man, because you know Dillian's going to be coming into that fight very pumped. And he's going to want to win badly. That's like a world title shot without a strap, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, I'd love to see that fight. Failing that, you mentioned Michael Hunter. Like I said, I don't think that's a great fight for him. Some people are talking about Luis Ortiz. Do we really want to see that? I'm not so sure. So listen, man, I'm hoping it would be Wilder, but who knows? He might just take a marking time fight against somebody that he's fairly comfortable in beating. I mean, he did say something to that effect, didn't he, after the fight in the ring with Eddie Hearn? He said, yeah, get me an easy fight where I can make some easy money. So, yeah, he can go down that road.
Stefan has said here, Povetkin definitely wasn't right. He was wobbling all over the place, even when he wasn't getting tired. Jerry did look a bit. I mean, come on, man. I don't want to take this away from Whyte. But Povetkin, it was kind of uncomfortable to watch for me as a neutral, because I'm just like, Povetkin doesn't even look like he's got his legs under him. He looks terrible. Did you not notice that?
Yeah, I did notice that, but I'm going to reiterate what I said earlier, which is that he got hit towards the back of the head early in the first round. And if you get hit with those shots, especially early, it can discombobulate you and take you a while to get your legs back underneath you properly. And I think that that's what happened here. So, yeah, he was wobbling, but I definitely think that he got hit with an equilibrium shot that kind of scrambled his senses a little bit.
Okay. Conrad Boxon has put here, Whyte versus Bryan wouldn't be pay-per-view though, would it? Now, it wouldn't. It definitely wouldn't, but I could see how they'd try and sell it. Do you know what I mean? And they'd use the regular title as a selling point. They'd probably beef up the undercard to try and compensate for the main event. I could see that happening. Or even Whyte versus Bryan being on the undercard of like another big pay-per-view show. I think the only other pay-per-view show he'd be on the undercard for would be AJ, to be honest. Dylan just seems to me to be just wanting to get active and want to fight. I don't think that would bother him. He's been on the undercard of AJ before in the Middle East. So that could be an option there. Selling it as a standalone pay-per-view event would be difficult, but I think that they'd have to try and either beef up that card or put that fight on another pay-per-view card. What do you reckon?
Well, you know, the issue is that the standard or the criteria for pay-per-view seems to be lowering, let's be honest. I mean, I think there's a fight coming up on the 1st of May between Chisora and Parker. And I'm hearing that that's pay-per-view. Now, come on. With respect to both guys, that is not a pay-per-view worthy fight. And I've seen some of the fights scheduled for the undercard. They're trying to beef it up and stuff. But I've always said a pay-per-view sells itself on the strength of the main fight. Now, Joseph Parker and Derek Chisora is not a pay-per-view worthy fight, in my opinion. In fact, I think you'd struggle to find many people outside of the camps of those two fighters who would say that. So the pay-per-view phenomenon is with us, and there's quite a few fights, not just in this country, but around the world. I mean, I'm hearing that Areola versus Andy Ruiz is pay-per-view out there, you know what I mean?
$49.99.
Yeah, ridiculous. So unfortunately, we're living in that area now, in that era where there's a lot of pay-per-view fights for which I don't think they are pay-per-view worthy, but there you go. I mean, Ben Askren versus Jake Paul, in it. Again, pay-per-view.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Nathan said here, Trevor Bryan probably won't fight for another 2 years as he is signed to Don King. Then he's put, they could sell Bryan. Hearn can sell anything. Stefan has put here, Whyte Bryan would 100% be pay-per-view. No way they stick Whyte on regular Sky again. I agree. Nathan has put, pay-per-view standard has been watered down for years. And he's also said Cheeseman Metcalf was a brutal fight, was always going to be, fight of the night, given both of their stars. That was a brilliant fight. Cheeseman and Metcalf, and a brutal ending in that fight as well. Cheeseman and Fowler, who you got winning that? Because that's what they're talking about, aren't they?
Yeah, you know what? To me, that's a genuine 50-50 fight. I might edge it to Fowler on account of his freshness, because it seems that every time Cheeseman goes into a fight, man, it's a war. And as tough as Cheeseman is, there's only so many times you can go to the well like that. And Anthony Fowler's a big, strong guy. He probably has to boil himself down to the weight to make the weight. But then we've seen with Fowler, he's not unbeatable either. You saw that he was beaten by Scott Fitzgerald and dropped in that fight as well. So Ted Cheeseman definitely has a chance.
I think he's got a good shot. I think Cheeseman, he goes to the well a lot, but he does know how to box. He does know how he does. And I think Fowler, if they get drawn in, sucked into war, then you got to favour Cheeseman in that. I don't know. I just think it's an even fight. It's a 50-50 fight, that one, for me.
I think if they got sucked into a war, I would favour Fowler off the back of two things that I've observed. One, definitely Fowler's got less miles on the clock. I mean, I'm sure that Fowler could be the same age or even older than Cheeseman. But in terms of the way they look, man, and the wear and tear, then Fowler would be the younger fighter in terms of, body and stuff like that. Secondly, I think physically, Fowler is the physically stronger of the two. Not by a long way, but I think he's definitely the physically stronger of the two. And I think that that might tell. Because if you notice in the fight against JJ Metcalf, Cheeseman got off to a great start, was boxing brilliantly, as good as I've seen him box, to be honest. Moving his feet, throwing some lovely combinations, moving his head. But when he got tired, he did start getting tagged. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
He was getting pushed back by JJ Metcalf, who incidentally is very physically strong as well. And you could see that the difference in physicality was giving Cheeseman some problems. But what I liked about Cheeseman in that fight is that he sucked it up. He kind of got a second wind. And when he got the second wind, it's almost like he kind of got his skill set back a little bit.
Yeah.
And then once he started pushing JJ Metcalf back, then he looked a different proposition. And of course, he got the win in the end, which with that left hook, which he was able to land quite often throughout the night. So, yeah, it's a very impressive performance. I just think Fowler won't be as stationary as Metcalf was.
Yeah.
He will offer different problems. And I think given his size and strength, I think that might be an issue for Cheeseman. But listen, man, I wouldn't put it past Cheeseman to win. But if I was a betting man, which I'm not, I'd probably lean slightly towards Fowler.
Yeah. When you look at, the light middleweight division, and this is one for the purists, man, people that have been following boxing for a while. But the light middleweight division now, you look at some of the guys in there like Cheeseman, obviously Liam Smith is there. You've got Fowler, you've got Fitzy, you've got Conroy. Do you remember the light middleweight division in the early 2000s when it had Takaloo, Richard Williams, Wayne Alexander, Roberts? What era do you think, what's more exciting for you from that? Because you remember both periods. Is this era more exciting, or do you think that domestic era back then was more exciting? Because that was very exciting at that time as well, wasn't it, with those guys?
You know what? That is a great question.
That's what I'm here for, man.
Yeah, that is a great question. As well, you missed that Anthony Farnell back in the day. Anthony Farnell, yeah. You know what? I would kind of, maybe I'm showing my age a little bit here, but I would say that that previous era probably had a bit more talent to it. But what I would say is that these guys are more likely to fight each other now. Yeah. Because I think the one thing about Eddie Hearn and Matchroom is that he's not afraid to match his fighters with each other, and he's not afraid to cross-pollinate and match fighters of other, promotional camps. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, man. But yeah, that's a good question, because it's too. That division in this country is smoking at the moment, man. You know what I mean?
Man. Yeah.
There's some great fights to be made. I just hope that we get them. You know what I mean? One thing I do like though is that all of the fighters seem to be entertaining those fights. So Cheeseman said he wants it. Anthony Fowler said he wants it. You know what I mean? JJ Metcalf, as previous, said he wants it. You know what I mean? Conroy, all of those guys have indicated that they're prepared to fight each other, which is a great thing. It's none of this A side, B side. I'm only giving him 30%, and it's like what we've seen from some of the guys in the States. So, you know what I mean? So, yeah, man, let's go for it.
Sure.
And Garcia, his style don't suit mine. What's he done to fight me and all that crap? So, in many ways, we're leading the way for that. So that's great.
Nathan has put here, Cheeseman is awesome to watch. I would slightly favour Fowler, but I would pull for Ted. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Big up Stefan here. He said, Jennings Rivas are rematching at Bridgerweight. That would be a good fight. Had Jennings edge in the first fight when Rivas stopped him. Yeah, but hasn't Jennings, didn't he retire? Or did he not retire? Or was he inactive for a period?
No, it was more a case of him being inactive. He said he wanted some time out the ring to address some certain things, is what I heard. And that he would definitely be making a return to the ring at some stage. So I don't think he ever actually retired. I just think he had a pit stop in his career and was probably working out what, because he did say, I heard an interview of him the other day actually, where he said that it was always his intention to return to the ring, and he had some offers, but he wanted to see which ones would play out the best for him. So I think,
good fight. I mean, yeah, Jennings. Stefan said he had Jennings' edge in the first fight when Rivas stopped him. Bridgerweight. I mean, hey, it's gonna put this division in the limelight now. First title fight there, I think, for the WBC strap. What's your thoughts on it? Are you looking forward to this? Stefan is.
Yeah, why not, man? I mean, listen.
So you're having Bridgerweight now. You're gonna have that division now.
Well, it's not so much that I'm having it. It's just that it's a reality, isn't it? I mean, it's just boxing. It's just the way things are going, man. So I wouldn't hate on it because, like I was saying on your show a couple of weeks ago, with the Bridgerweight, there are going to be a lot of guys who are kind of in between weights. So this might offer them an opportunity to get a strap, which is obviously why Jennings wants this fight. And if they can win a title, why not? So you might get a lot of other guys try and contest this weight. You know what I mean? There are a lot of heavyweights out there that are not behemoths like Joshua and Fury and Wilder and people like that. You know what I mean? So I think there's some good fights to be made potentially. We'll see how it goes. I'm not going to hate on it yet until I see how it plays out.
Let's see how it goes, man. I'll quickly run through these comments before we move on to Frampton and Herring. Now, Nathan has said here, Metcalf will need a good break now. Would like to see him face Eggington down the line. That's a good fight. He showed a great chin and heart in this loss. Yeah, he did. He's also put 154 is good domestically. Also, Troy Williamson, Kieran Smith. Yeah, I'll fight April 30th. That's on the Frank Warrens. That's a good show in a British title eliminator. I'm looking forward to that. And he's also put here good win for McKinson as well. Very skilled boxer. I like how he throws that left hand from all angles. Yeah, he did look good against Chris Congo last weekend for sure. Let's talk about Frampton Herring. Now, this fight here, it's scheduled for this weekend. It's been postponed and like pushed back for a few times now over the last year, maybe last year and a half. But like these two have been due to fight each other for a while. They're finally going to be fighting this weekend in Dubai. It's an opportunity for Carl Frampton to become a 3-division world champion. He's going to be taking on Jamel Herring, who's defending the WBO belt. Now, Herring is actually the older guy. He's 35 years old. Frampton's 34. But if you look at mileage on the clock, you'd say that Frampton's probably got more mileage. And one thing that concerned me about Carl Frampton is he said this week that if he loses, he's retiring. So to me, you know what that means. When somebody says that, it's like they've got one foot out the door, ain't they? What's your thoughts on this fight and how do you see it going?
Yeah, it's a good point you make there about the retirement. But I think Carl Frampton's kind of toyed with retirement before, hasn't he? And come back to the ring. I think the motivation for Frampton in this fight is that I think if he wins this fight, then he would be the first Irishman to win a world title in 3 different weight classes. And a lot of people are already saying or designating him as the best Irish fighter ever if he does that. So I think he wants to go out in a blaze of glory and achieve that. And then he probably will retire if he loses. But then I can see him, if he wins, the motivation will be to have one last big fight back in Belfast or something like that, a homecoming fight. So there's a lot for him to fight for. It's a lot on the line here. I must admit, when I first heard about this fight, I wasn't really that excited about it because, and I think I said to you on your show that it was a bit of a cherry pick by Frampton, wasn't it? Because let's face it, some of the other fighters at that division are a lot more well-known and better quality than Jamel Herring. People like Valdez and Shakur Stevenson and people like that. So I did consider it a bit of a cherry pick. I still do, although now it's starting to make sense. And as the fight draws closer, I'm actually looking forward to it a lot more than when the fight was initially made. I actually see Carl Frampton winning this fight, to be honest. I've not been overly impressed by Jamel Herring.
He didn't look good in his last fight.
No, I'm sort of struggling to see fights where I was impressed by him. You know what I mean? So he's not a puncher. He's not a particularly skillful fighter. He does have advantages in terms of height and reach. So he's going to be the bigger man on the night. But he's not a very powerful guy. And I just think that he could get outworked by Frampton. I think Frampton's going to be the physically stronger, even though he's smaller. And I think Frampton's probably a bit more motivated. He's the heavier puncher. And I just think boxing politics as well. I think the fact that it's been out in Dubai, Frampton's the A card. I just see that if the fight goes to points, that Frampton's probably going to get a decision. It may be one of those that you may look back and think, well, actually, I think Herring might have nicked it. You know what I mean? It's going to be one of those, I think. I don't think it's going to be an exciting fight. I think it's going to be one that Carl Frampton probably does just enough to win. And even if he doesn't, they're not going to give the decision to Herring. It's going to be one of them, you know what I mean? I can see Carl Frampton coming away with this one on points.
Stefan has put here, there's no way Frampton is losing on points with Dan Kinahan ringside. And Nathan has said here, Frampton may edge it. I'm not too sure, though. It's a close fight for me. It's a close fight for me, too. Because the reason why I think that, like what Nathan's saying, is Jamel Herring is fresher for me than Frampton. He's taller. He's awkward. He's a southpaw. He's busier. Well, Frampton is busy as well, actually, to be fair. But Jamel Herring can get busy. Yeah, I think this is a fight for me. It's going points, regardless. I don't see anyone getting stopped. I'll be very surprised if someone got stopped in this. I'll see it going to points. I think it's just going to be one of those fights where we talk about it next week and we could be like, all right, some people thought Frampton won, some people thought, Herring won, and there's probably going to be a scorecard in there where we're going to be like, how did they get that scorecard? That is literally what I can see happening in this fight. That's literally how I see it going. A close fight, anyone could have got it. One scorecard is going to be ridiculous, and we're going to be talking about that. That's what I think.
Yeah, listen, man, I don't disagree with you there. And I would, one of your earlier contributors said that thing about Daniel Kinahan. Listen, man, it's not just about Kinahan and MTK Global. But unfortunately, the trend in boxing seems to be, if you're the so-called A side going into the fight, it seems like you're already 2 or 3 rounds up on the cards.
Yeah.
Boxing politics, and I know this sounds slightly controversial, is not to be underestimated, because 9 times out of 10, that's how things play out. That's why a lot of times you would almost prefer to see a stoppage, because it's more conclusive and it saves us the embarrassment of having to go to the scorecards and have some real horrible injustices done to people. I mean, you saw a few weeks ago with the Estrada Chocolatito fight. I have not seen one person that said that Estrada won that fight.
Still hurts me.
Look at some of the cards that was returned there. And it's a similar type of scenario here. Jamel Herring is not going to get no love from the judges, man. And the problem for Jamel Herring, I don't think he punches hard enough to really put any real hurt on Frampton. That being said, we know that Josh Warrington is not a heavy puncher. He decked Frampton. I had him in trouble. So it's not impossible. Frampton's chin can be checked, although he does have a good chin. But I just don't see Herring getting it on the cards, man. I can't see it.
That's literally what Nathan said here. I have a feeling Herring won't get it on the cards, even if he wins.
And that's why I was saying earlier that it could be one of those that, to the naked eye of most people, Herring would have done enough work, would have been busier with the jab and so forth to win rounds. But is he actually going to get them scored in his favor? And like I said, I've not seen Herring with the type of power that's going to stop Carl Frampton or knock him down or knock him out. So that was why I predicted that Frampton will probably win it. Whether he'll deserve to win it is another matter entirely. We'll see. But I am kind of, as I said to you before, as the fight draws closer, I do find it quite an intriguing fight. Initially, when I heard of it, I just thought of it as a Frampton cherry pick. And let's be honest, man, Carl Frampton, as good a fighter as he is, you've only got to go back to those days when he was a featherweight and running away from Rigondeaux and all those guys, Gary Russell Jr. He was definitely a cherry picker. He was definitely a ducker. So, you know what I mean? And that's how I kind of considered this fight. But it's here now, so we'll watch it.
In my opinion, I mean, Jamel Herring's got a good story, but prime for prime, there's no way Herring beats Frampton, is it? If Frampton's anywhere close to his prime, it's not that close, is it?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, Herring was a good amateur. I don't know if you know, you probably do. But he was at the 2012 Olympics, wasn't he?
Yeah.
For the American team, he didn't get too far, but he did win a couple of national golden gloves and that in America. He was a good amateur. And when I see him box, he kind of still has that amateur style to him, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He doesn't really sit down on his punches. He's more of a point scorer, you know what I mean? And yes, he has this story about the Marines and stuff like that, but you know, hey, you need to have a bit more than that going for you, man. You know what I mean? So he's not really taken the boxing world by storm. In fact, if anything, he's more known as an associate of Terence Crawford, isn't he? He's been trained by Bomac. They're in the same camp. It's highly likely that you might see Terence Crawford in the audience come Saturday, because we know Terence Crawford likes to attend these fights. So you never know, he might be there. But he tends to be known more for that than his own career. And that pretty much tells you, you know what I mean, what's happened to Jamel Herring's career.
Yeah. Yeah. My final prediction here, I'm gonna say what you said. I think that Frampton will win it on points. However, I think it could be a controversial decision or a very close one where you could go either way for either fighter. Probably a bad scorecard in there, but I could see Frampton nicking it and then retiring after.
I think
maybe
if
one more fight,
you definitely have that homecoming fight.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, the WBO are bound to serve him up somebody. You know, it'd probably be someone from Britain that he can get a win against and walk off into the sunset as Ireland's greatest ever fighter. Now, whether he is or not, it's probably not for me to say. I'm not so sure. I'd have to really sit down and think about that. But it'd definitely be in consideration, wouldn't it?
Obviously, you've got people like Steve Collins, but then you're looking at the Republic. He's from Northern Ireland, aren't we? So are we including all of Ireland in that? I don't want to get into it either.
No, but in boxing terms, it's always all of Ireland, isn't it?
Okay, well then.
Really where they divide up like that. Even the rugby team, I love my rugby, and the Irish team is made up of Northern Irelanders and from the Republic. So, yeah, I think boxing's the same. So, yeah.
You've got some good, obviously, you've got Steve Collins in there. You've got Barry McGuigan in there. You've got some good Irish fighters from back in the day, haven't you?
There's been some great Irish fighters from way back. You know, I mean, it's boxing's always been quite integral in Irish sport. So, yeah.
Yeah. Looking forward to it, guys. Don't forget this fight, guys. It's going to be on Channel 5. It's going to be starting at 10 o'clock in Dubai. They're a few hours ahead of us. So at least we're not going to be having that, 3 a.m. start or anything like that, 4 a.m. I think it'll be over by then. So, yeah, looking forward to that. A good Saturday night worth of sports. Let's talk about Terence Crawford, actually, because Terence Crawford, obviously he's sparring. He spars Jamel. Well, I don't know if he spars, but they're in the same camp.
Yeah, they do spar.
Yeah. Just a quick one here from Sully. Big up Sully in the chat. But Herring is going to stop Frampton.
No, I can't see that.
Can't see it. I don't know about that. I don't know, man. I think Frampton's got a good shot. I'll be surprised if Herring stopped him. But let's see.
Surprised he stops him. Very surprised.
Back on Terence Crawford.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably an indication of the age of Frampton and the wear and tear, because I haven't seen anything in Herring's record previously to suggest he's going to do that to Frampton. And let's face it, Frampton's got quite a sturdy chin. He's been in with some guys who can hit. And, he's been in with the likes of Scott Quigg and people like that who are bangers. And they've never budged him. So I doubt if he gets stopped.
Let's see. Like I said, it'll be on Channel 5 over here in the UK, ESPN in America. So I'm looking forward to that fight of the weekend. But Terence Crawford, like I said, there was an announcement from Bob Arum this week. It wasn't an announcement. It was just an interview. But he said that there will be an announcement on Crawford's next fight. And he promised that Crawford is going to be in a big pay-per-view fight. And he said that an announcement is due for this week. And as soon as I saw that, I got my juices flowing. I'm like, who is it? Because it's not going to be Errol Spence. But you've got names. It could be Pacquiao. It could be, I don't know, Sean Porter. Could it be Keith Thurman? Like, if you're talking like that, saying it's going to be a big pay-per-view fight, it's got to be probably Pacquiao, hasn't it? I mean, who else could you say it that confidently about? And it's not a big pay-per-view fight. Maybe Porter, but...
Yeah, listen, the first thing I want to say about Bob Arum is I just want to reflect on a quote that he himself said.
You've said this before, I know you have.
Yeah. Yesterday I was lying, today I'm telling the truth. So for that reason, and let's face it, this is a man, he said it himself, I always try to, you know what I mean, be even-minded in assessing anything that Bob Arum says. That being said, he did make this bold, grandiose statement. And yes, it would appear that the likes of Pacquiao is in the running.
Pacquiao in the Middle East.
Thurman, possibly. He could be in the running. Porter, you know what I mean? So it's likely to be one of those three. I would love it to be Pacquiao, but we'll see, man. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm hearing subsequent to that Pacquiao expressed a mild interest in the fight, but then said he's got other options and he may pursue those. So you don't know, man. You really don't know.
We've heard this talk of Pacquiao in the Middle East before, though, haven't we?
Yeah.
But it never come to fruition. If it is Pacquiao, yeah, Pacquiao and Crawford. As much as I love Pacquiao, I think Pacquiao's a legend. He's got nothing more to prove. I'll have to really salute him if he does take this fight, because I think it's a bad stylistic matchup for Pacquiao at this age, at this stage of his career. I could see Crawford giving him a beatdown, if I'm being honest, man. That's my honest opinion. I know Pacquiao is a legend. His legacy is secure. If he was in his prime, it'd be completely different. But I think at this stage, fighting Terence Crawford, I just don't like the fight for him. So maximum respect if it is Pacquiao, but if it is, I don't like his chances. Just my opinion.
No, you know what? That's an opinion I probably share. I can't see Manny Pacquiao beating Terence Crawford. But if you're Pacquiao, you know what I mean, he's been in there with pretty much everyone over the last 10, 15 years or so. He will think that maybe he has a chance. I mean, Terence Crawford can get hit. I mean, even in the Kell Brook fight, Kell Brook had his moments in that first round. He did land a couple of shots, and Bosun Manny thinks, well, maybe I can hurt him and drop him. You know what I mean? Even if I come from behind, maybe I could stop Crawford. I don't know, because Crawford has been decked before, a few occasions actually. So if you're Manny Pacquiao, with the wealth of experience he has and the ability and the talent and the experience, he'll be thinking that he has a chance. But I must admit, I was also surprised that he expressed an interest in taking this fight, because I'd always thought that he was swerving Terence Crawford. So is Manny looking at this fight as a big cash out because of the amount of money it would secure him? Maybe he thinks it's a better star matchup for him than Errol Spence, who's physically bigger and who boils himself down, you know what I mean, from a higher weight to get down to 147. Maybe he feels that Crawford, for that reason, might be a slightly easier fight. But I don't give him much chance of beating Terence Crawford, to be honest. I think that, like you said, Terence Crawford would be all wrong for him. Terence Crawford is a superbly skilled guy. He's a switch hitter. He can punch. He does have dog in him. You know what I mean? And yeah, I think that would be a very hard night for Pacquiao. Yeah. And a passing of the sword as well, passing of the torch. Sorry.
Yeah. Conrad said here, Pac would be crazy to take that fight. There is more money at way lower risk out there for him. Like Scott has said, and I agree with you totally, Conrad. But Scott has said here, Pacquiao versus Crawford makes the most sense for Manny. Money-wise, it could be Mikey Garcia, though. I think money-wise, like what Conrad said, he thinks that there is more money for a lower risk out there for him. Maybe Mikey Garcia, like Scott says here. But
I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think that
Mikey Garcia
with Mikey Garcia generates more money and more interest than a fight with Terence Crawford. I mean, okay, Mikey Garcia, due to his Mexican ancestry, has got, you know, a big support base in that area of the world. But I'm not sure if people would regard that as particularly competitive, given that Mikey Garcia has not looked good in his last couple of fights and he's not been active for a while. With Terence Crawford, a lot of people will be saying, look, this is a real fight I can get up for. You know what I mean? That's from a fan's perspective. Because even though you don't think so or I don't think so, there will be a lot of people who believe that Pacquiao can beat Crawford just because of his who he is and stuff like that. So I think that it makes it a more marketable fight. And obviously there's more on the line, given that Terence Crawford is a WBO welterweight champion and has such a distinguished record.
Yeah.
And like some people, myself included, would say that Crawford's a pound for pound number one. So you imagine if Crawford, having beaten Thurman, as he did a couple of years ago, then kind of comes out of another semi-retirement or a lengthy layoff outside the ring, comes back and beats one of the pound for pound champions in the world, Terence Crawford, that would be massive for, can you imagine that? For Manny's legacy, you know what I mean? He'd be able to walk off into the sunset and not be able to fight again.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah. So I think that fight is a lot more attractive.
Sulia said here, Mikey and Robert Garcia said it's not them. Fair enough. Thanks for letting us know that. He's also said here, Furman had an interview on the Boxing Voice. Oh, he has an interview on the Boxing Voice in a few hours. It's not Furman. And those reports from MP Promotions is a fake quote from a Twitter troll. Mike on Sports exposed it. Watch his latest live. Yeah. Looking at this comment here, there was reports that an MP Promotions tweet or something said that this was fake and it wasn't going to be Crawford. But Sulia said here that those reports were fake, and apparently it's not going to be Furman. So it's going to be Pacquiao and Crawford then. It's got to be, because I heard...
Or Porter.
Oh, yeah, could be Porter, true. But I saw this week that Bob Arum wanted to hold that date, a date in June for Pacquiao and Crawford, but nothing was confirmed yet. So after his interview that he had where he said that there was going to be a big pay-per-view happening and they're going to announce it this week, then he holds a venue for Pacquiao Crawford, but then he says it's not done yet. It makes you think maybe it is going to be Pacquiao, but then Sean Porter is there as well. And for me, I'll take both. I'll take either. For me, I'll take either.
Yeah, I would take either as well. But I think the problem with Sean Porter is, doesn't he have or is currently recovering from COVID?
Not sure.
Yeah, I think he does have COVID. So that might be a problem logistically to make that fight. But listen, man, I think most people, if you chat to in the game or even outside the game, fans, both casual and hardcore, once you mention the name Manny Pacquiao, the eyes are going to light up. That would be the fight that most people want to see. And that would be a great fight to make. And I think it would be a great name for Crawford to have on his resume. Likewise, Manny, you know, I mean, can you imagine if Manny was to beat Crawford and, you know what I mean, after what happened to him against Mayweather, and that was back in 2015, to come back and say you've beaten a pound for pound and you hold the world welterweight title again, you know what I mean? I think that would be great for him. So maybe chasing greatness in that way. And then of course, the money that he's going to be able to command for a fight like this will be massive. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm hoping it's Pacquiao. I would have preferred it to have been Errol Spence, man. But you know what? Errol Spence, or Lil Errol, as I call it. That's what I call Errol Spence now. Lil Errol, because he's a rapper, isn't it? Doesn't he change careers? I saw him a few weeks ago with all the big chains on, Louis Vuitton hat, clearly inebriated, whether it was drink or some other people suggesting it might be other substances. Listen, I don't know. But all I know is that when he interviewed, he sounded, the words kind of were slurry. So there's definitely something going on there. And so I'm speculating that he's changed his career. So if you don't want to fight those guys, I'm calling him Lil Errol, and he can start rapping and leave it to Terence Crawford.
Go to the comments here, man. Conrad has said here, how big of a pay-per-view name is Crawford? What has been his biggest pay-per-view so far? Khan, that was pay-per-view, wasn't it? Crawford Khan was.
No, but you know what? I think that's a bit of a misnomer about this pay-per-view name and pay-per-view start. It's the fight, isn't it? So to anyone's eyes and ears, Crawford versus Pacquiao is a pay-per-view fight. I mean, listen, it doesn't matter how many pay-per-views he's taken part in previously or not. This particular fight is a pay-per-view fight. I'm sure most people would agree.
Let's answer this question though. How many pay-per-views has he had?
He's had a few. I don't think they've done huge numbers, but you know what? To me, that's irrelevant. This fight will do huge numbers. I'm sure it will. As long as it's promoted right, it will do huge numbers. So surely that's all that needs to be said, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got the pound for pound number one, in my humble opinion, against one of the all-time greats. I don't think anybody out there will dispute that. You put them together in a high-profile fight like this, it's bound to be pay-per-view fight.
Scott 70's put here, if Mikey has ruled himself out, then it's most likely Manny. Stefan has put, if Manny beats Bud, does he have a better legacy than Floyd?
I knew somebody was going to put that one. You know what? I would still have to go for Floyd, man. But I wouldn't argue too much if you said Pacquiao. And I'm only saying that simply because, obviously, Floyd beat Manny.
Yeah.
So that gives him a slight edge. But you look at Pacquiao's resume, man, it's hard to argue against it, isn't it? I mean, and if he was to beat Terence Crawford, that would be phenomenal by anyone's standards. So, you know what I mean? Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's do it. Like I said, Lil Errol don't want to fight. He wants to rap. Let him go rap. Let Terence Crawford win titles, build his legacy, and, you know what I mean, let's see where it takes us.
Is that harsh on Errol, considering what Errol's done at welterweight, his resume compared to Crawford's?
Well, listen, man, I am...
Right, we give him stick.
I am being a bit facetious. I am being a bit facetious because, you know what I mean? I think part of the disappointment for me with Errol Spence is because I like the guy, you know what I mean? And I wanted him to conduct himself the way a true champion does. After the way I've seen him treat Crawford, I can't rock with that, man. I can't. So, yeah, I'm a little bit being disrespectful. I know that I'm trying to be a bit of a wise ass, but listen, man, Errol Spence is a great fighter, but until he starts conducting himself the way he did when he first come on the scene and he was calling out all these men, that's the Errol Spence I like. That's the Errol Spence I respect. This one we're seeing now with the drinking and all the other out the ring activities, not wanting to take on the best challengers. Nah, man, I'm done with that, Errol Spence. You know what I mean? So until he gets back in the ring, I know there's talk of him fighting Ugas. So, and even that, him calling out Ugas, wasn't you disappointed with that?
I was surprised, to be honest.
Ugas gets a belt, you're calling him out. When, you know what I mean, you could have unified the belts when Terence Crawford had. I mean, what does that say, man? You know what I mean? And listen, I've called out Canelo for ducking, and I don't regret that. Yeah, but I've got to be fair. Errol Spence is going down that same road, and I don't like it.
Let's get some more of the comments here. Stefan has said Mikey Garcia against Furman would make sense. Both inactive and both only looking for money fights at this stage. Good, true. That is a
very good point. Both of those two guys, they pretty much said it without saying it.
Retired them two
for money, innit? I'm looking at two guys, Mikey Garcia and Keith Furman. They're both excellent fighters, or were excellent fighters. But the problem with those guys is they've made a lot of money. They've achieved a lot. They're in the twilight of their careers. And to me, to all intents and purposes, they've fallen out of love with the game. But they know that they're good enough to still make a lot of money out of the game. So it's almost like they're looking at a retirement fund, you know what I mean? Which makes it hard for us fans, especially the hardcore fans, to take these guys seriously. I mean, Mikey Garcia, you look at his last couple of fights, man, he's looked lackluster. You know what I mean? He's not looked that good. Same goes for Thurman. So, and then you consider the level of talent that these guys were displaying a few years ago, and they've dropped off from them levels. And to me, it's obvious that's because they haven't stayed in the gym. They haven't kept sharp. They haven't been fighting enough. They haven't been seeking out the best challenges. And what we're seeing now is a result of that. So they're probably looking at one last big hit before they call time in their careers. Most
likely, yeah. Let's go through these comments here before we move on to our next topic. Sully has put here, the same Twitter troll that started the Crawford versus Josecito Lopez rumors is the one that created the quote from MP Promotions. It's a LDBC channel burner account. Some people just haven't got no time in their lives, have they, man? I mean, honestly, like, What are you getting out of doing that? Just creating fake shit online, and you got nothing to do in your actual life. Like,
clearly not. You know what? The boxing fan landscape is one that really intrigues me and disappoints me in equal measure, because I've said it before in your show this last week and the week before probably, and I'm going to say it again. The thing that I find weird about boxing fans is that, and a lot of them do this, they attach themselves to one particular fighter, and that becomes at the expense of boxing itself. So you're so wrapped up in this one guy that you can't see the wood from the trees. Now, if you was a real boxing fan, you would want to see the best fight the best and the best fights being made. But it's almost as if with some of these guys, you want to have this protective, nurturing air over your fighter. So you don't want to see him take on another guy that you feel is particularly threatening, because you think, well, if he beats him, then he can't claim he's unbeaten anymore or whatever. You know what I mean? And I just find it weird. If you really supported the sport, first and foremost, you would be happy that you've got all these guys that are talents and that you can make all these fights, and then they fight each other. And when the smoke is cleared, there's one man standing. You think, you know what, that guy is a great fighter. Doesn't mean that the other guys weren't good. You know what I mean? It's just that this guy has proved himself above the level of others. And that's how life works itself, as people always say.
Do you know what I think? I think it's an age thing. Because I remember when I was younger, there were certain fighters that I attached myself to where I looked up to them. I was like, yeah, man, those guys, man. Yeah, like, and I think that could be the case with some of these guys with the fighters now. I could be wrong. I mean, there are some older fighters like that too, but I think with a lot of younger fans, they'll probably attach themselves to somebody that they either look up to, somebody that they might try and model their style off if they fight themselves, or somebody that they just want to be like or just admire. When you're younger, you tend to be more impressionable. So do you think that might be the case where the fanboyism exists? Like, you might see a young fighter, like maybe from around that way, looks at Errol Spence like, yo, I want to be like him, man. He's got the chains, he's got the sunglasses on, he does this, he does that, he can fight, he's undefeated. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people were like that with Floyd. I was like that with Floyd growing up. But then when I got older, I was just like, hold on a minute, man. I'm a big man. Why do I have to look at these men like that now? It's not that. I just want to see the fights. Do you think that could be it?
Because you are a fan of boxing. And this is what I'm saying. Some of these guys, they're just fans of a particular fighter, and they don't really care too much about the sport. As long as their fighter wins, doesn't matter who he's in against, the Avni Yildirims of this world and people like that, people who they know they're going to get the win against. And then what makes me laugh about these so-called fans is that they will defend that to the hill, even when they clearly know it's wrong. Now, to go back to Floyd, he gets a lot of stick because a lot of people attribute a lot of what's going on now to the way he conducted his career when he made this big thing about being unbeaten and 50-0 and all the rest of it. So I do get that, but it doesn't have to be that way with the young fighters coming up now. You know what I mean? Look at Manny Pacquiao. He's still around. He's lost several times, and he will go down as one of the greatest fighters in history.
Yeah.
And it was only a few years ago, actually more than a few years ago now, that Juan Manuel Marquez absolutely slept Pacquiao face first. And I remember thinking at the time, that's probably the last time we see him in a ring, or if he does come back, it'll probably be some fight where he just gets another win for the sake of it and bow out of the sport. Look at the way that man has come back since then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the mark of a great fighter. So, you know.
Big up A. Obes in the chat here. He's put, this fight could do 1 million if it's promoted as Manny's retirement fight. Conrad has said here, you guys talk from a hardcore fan perspective. I think Pac wants Floyd versus Conor money before retiring. He even dropped his belt. And he's put, I hope you're right, though. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. The announcement is going to happen this week, according to Bob Arum. So, hopefully by next week's show, we'll be talking about who Crawford will be fighting next. Interesting times. But let's move on. In the show. I wanted to talk about the rise of exhibition fights. Now, we know that this is pretty common nowadays, but this looks like it could be the new normal. Now, this week, there were 3 exhibition fights that were pretty much announced or on their way to being announced. That was Oscar De La Hoya's comeback, who's looking to come back in June, I think it is, against a UFC fighter.
See him drop the mic.
Yeah. Then you've got Miguel Cotto and one Manuel Marquez talking about fighting each other in June or July. And then you've got Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. fighting Anderson Silva sometime in June or July. Now that's 3 exhibition type fights announced in a week or about to be announced. Go on.
Well, I heard one even worse than that. Mike Tyson versus James Toney.
You sure that weren't April Fools?
Well, I hope so. I hope so. But yeah, man, it's just getting ridiculous now. I mean, listen, man, I don't want to come across as curmudgeonly and all that, but none of those fights excite me, bro. None of them. I prefer to remember those guys as they were. Now, there seems to be this thing ever since Tyson fought a little while back, him and Roy Jones. Again, I wasn't interested in that. I didn't even really watch it. I think I saw a few mini highlights on YouTube. Didn't come across as a real fight to me.
It wasn't a good fight.
And it wasn't good to watch. It wasn't a good spectacle. To me, it was kind of borderline embarrassing. And I just don't like it. Now, some people seem to be excited by it. I think, to be fair with the Tyson-Roy Jones, it was the whole thing around the fight. The pre-fight entertainment, the post-fight entertainment. Snoop Dogg apparently did a really good job of calling the fight. He was, like, in many ways, a real star of that last promotion. So I get it from an entertainment point of view. And I think we should be careful to divorce the two elements. It's entertainment. It's not really boxing. So I think if it's framed in that reference as entertainment and it's not to be taken too seriously, then I can kind of see with it. But am I excited to see guys like Oscar De La Hoya in his 50s and things like that coming out of retirement? I mean, these guys could get hurt even in a so-called exhibition fight. They're still going to be throwing punches. Somebody could get hurt. I just don't like the sound of it, man. You know what I mean? And I'm just not excited by none of this stuff. I don't know how you feel, but none of it excites me.
Yeah, I think Cotto Marquez would have been a fight possibly made when they were both active. I know that there's a bit of a weight disparity there, but you know, that would have been interesting, you know, to style them up like mythically as a fantasy fight. Oscar De La Hoya got no interest in at all. Julio Cesar Chavez, Anderson Silva, literally zero minus interest in that. I've got no interest in that whatsoever. I don't follow UFC and I don't particularly follow Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. So that's just, I'm not interested in that either. I just think that it's just a trend. There's a market for it. People will subscribe to it. Even if we don't like it, like Conrad said, we're probably too hardcore. But there's going to be people out there that will subscribe to it. Some people, I don't know about the De La Hoya fight, but like, I don't know. Maybe
I'll contradict myself slightly here. So, you know, I'm going to come across as slightly hypocritical. But I'm just being honest. I like to be honest on this show. But on April 17th, I believe, I think it's Jake Paul's taking on Ben Askren. For some reason, that fight does kind of mildly interest me. Because you got, I don't know if you know, but Ben Askren's a former UFC fighter. He's never boxed before. And he's taking on a YouTuber, Jake Paul, who's trying to forge a career in boxing. And he's seeking to try and have himself taken seriously. Now that fight, because Ben Askren's a combat sports guy, and he's not fighting in UFC, but he's not that long retired. So he's still retaining all his skills and his strength and his fitness in that way. But he's never boxed before. And I have to say, I've seen him on the pads. He looks pretty awful, but there you go. And he's fighting against a YouTuber, a guy with no real boxing experience apart from two, let's face it, exhibition fights against a former basketball player and another YouTuber. That, in some ways, and the way they've been selling the fight and trash talking each other, that to me is entertainment that I've found mildly amusing. And you know what I mean? I think I'll probably watch that. I won't pay for it, probably wait for it to appear on YouTube. But some of the other guys, because I've sort of looked up to these guys, the Cottos and people, Marquez's and people like that, Oscar, Chavez and people like that, because I remember them, how they were back in the day, and I revered these guys, you know what I mean? To see them coming back now in their 50s, out of shape, you know what I mean, and thinking they can fool the public why this, I just find it quite sad, really. And I'm not excited by it at all. Like I said, the Tyson Roy, even though a lot of people around me, people I know seem to be getting excited by that fight, I was never excited by the fight. I didn't watch it on the night. I barely watched some very brief highlights on YouTube, and even then, I just looked at it in a quite pitiful way, really. I think, why are these guys doing it? Okay, they're making a lot of money, and but it's not for the good of the sport, is it? People are saying, oh, it's going to revive back the interest in boxing. It's because people like Lil Errol and that don't want to make the fights. That's why we got to watch these guys fight. But that's not really the answer, is it?
No.
55-year-old Mike Tyson fight a 56-year-old Roy Jones is not the answer to our problems in terms of fighters ducking each other. That's not going to make them stop, is it? So.
No, I remember when these were first being spoke about. I mean, exhibition fights has always been a thing. Let's put that out there. But I remember when the rise of some of these YouTuber fights were happening, and my first reaction to it was, look, man, if it brings more faces to the game, then I'm not really. If it brings more faces to the game, and it doesn't affect the current schedule in boxing, where we're still getting the fights that we want to see, this is just an addition, then I guess I'll turn a blind eye to it. But now I think it's becoming too common where it may start take dates away from shows that we could have potentially seen. And I know that there's a lot of fighters out there that look down on this, and I get that. But I think at the same time, they need to learn from this and say, why are we even in this position? Why is it the fact that these exhibition fights, which are really just like circus type fights, are actually being taken seriously and making more money than what I'm making? What do I need to do to get my career into that sort of realm where I could start earning serious money? What could I learn from this guy? But at the moment, yeah, it's just becoming a bit of a show to me. I'll go to the comments here. Big Lou, my brother.
I would just say on that although we do look down on that, the concept is there in other sports. So, for example, in tennis, there's a seniors tour. In golf,
yeah, but it's not like this. It's not like this.
What I'm making is that there is a market for watching older athletes past their primes indulging in the sport that they formerly used to play. So I guess if you're looking at it from that perspective, yes, there could be some validity in a kind of seniors tour. Now, would I watch it? Probably not. You probably not. But there will be some people out there who will think it's interesting. You know what I mean? So, but I just can't for the life of me. Boxing's such a unique sport that I just don't like to see it. Guys in their 50s with the belly all over the place, man boobs. And I mean, they're trading off the name that they had 30 years plus ago. And you think to yourself, nah, man, I've been sold a lie here. You know what I mean? I'm just not buying it, man. Just not buying it.
Big Lewis said here, I agree. I think that these exhibition fights are okay, but don't sell them as real fights, in my opinion. Scott 70 has put here, Shannon Briggs and Franz both have been talking about a rematch. It's honestly, man. Big Lewis said, I just don't see the point in these exhibition fights. Conrad has said, I agree with Laurie. He's also said about both Paul and the old guys. And Stefan has said here, senior tours on other sports are occupied by ex-pros, though. Some of these exhibitions are a joke. So I totally agree with that as well, man. But they look like they're here to stay. It doesn't look like they're going anywhere.
Well, you know what? Maybe not, because I reckon, like you were saying, if it starts to get too much and people see them for what they were, then like a lot of things in life, it's market forces that dictate, isn't it? So, okay, Roy Jones and Tyson, that was a success. Maybe a couple of the others have been spoken about now. Maybe it's success. But I can see a scenario whereby if people keep doing this, and when we start getting fights like Franz Boga versus Shannon Briggs and people like that, I think after a while people are going to say, you know what, I've had enough of this now. It was a bit of a phenomenon a little while back, but now it's just getting stale and boring again, and that's it. So maybe, you know what, we need to let them run its course until it dies out. Who knows?
Before we sign out for today, for this week's podcast, I wanted to just speak about a fight that was announced this week. That is a legit fight. And that's Devin Haney fighting Jorge Linares. That's going to be taking place on May the 29th in Las Vegas. What's your thoughts on that? Good fight for Devin Haney?
Yeah, I like that fight, man. I mean, Devin Haney, to be fair to him, he's been getting a bit of stick, but he has genuinely, in my opinion, been calling out guys. He's been calling out Lomachenko. He's been calling out Ryan Garcia, the Instagram champion of the world. Do you remember him? The one with when he won the eliminator for a world title fight, and then they said he's not going to fight the champion because it's not an attractive fight for him. So I do feel a bit sorry for Devin Haney, the way he's been treated by some people in boxing, by the TV networks and stuff like that. That being said, he's got to get in the ring. He's got to get back on with his career. It would appear some people he's called out don't want to fight him. He's called out Linares. Linares is taking the fight. Fair play to Linares. Linares is clearly past his best, but I believe he still has enough talent, experience, and know-how to give Devin Haney a good fight. So this would be like a benchmark fight. Because Devin Haney will be looking there to go in there and do a number on Linares, who's a former outstanding world champion himself. So I'm sure Devin Haney will be thinking, listen, if I can get this guy out of there before 12 and do it in good fashion, I will make a statement. For Linares, he's thinking that, this guy, I'll probably get him at the right time. He's a bit green, hasn't had a whole lot of fights. I've probably forgotten more about boxing than this young guy knows. If I could stick around in there, even if I don't beat him, but I put up a good performance, it's going to make him a bit more marketable going forward and maybe increase his career by a few more years. So I think the fight makes sense.
Yeah. I think in terms of what's out there, I would have took obviously Loma and Haney, but like Conrad said here, Loma's going to be fighting Nakatani, isn't he? That's not a bad fight. Nakatani, good fighter, yeah. That's not a bad fight.
You're coming off a loss. And let's face it, Lomachenko, I was very disappointed with the way he took that loss. He never took that very well. So you never know the demons that are running around in these guys' heads. For him to come back to a fight like that, if he fights the Nakatani that showed up against Lopez, I think that this could be a real good fight because Nakatani, from what I've seen, he comes to fight. He's big for the weight. He's strong. He likes to fight. He likes to put himself out there for a punch-up. So the style could give Lomachenko problems.
I think that's going to be June or July.
Have problems with taller guys.
I think that'll be June or July. They're talking about that fight. So yeah, that's not a bad fight at all. Going back to Devin Haney, yeah. Lou says here it's a good test for Haney and a good chance to stake his claim as the best in the division if he can make a statement. Yeah. Teofimo Lopez, he's a recognized number, but Haney needs to get those fights. He needs to get those fights. If he can make a statement against Linares, then maybe it will help get his name out there for those other fights. With Ryan Garcia, I think they were talking about Javier Fortuna. I think that fight got ordered, didn't it, from the WBC? So I don't know what the WBC are doing.
Well, maybe Ryan doesn't see as a fight as attractive enough for him, because he is the world Instagram champion. So,
What about Javier Fortuna?
No, listen, that would be a good fight for him, in my opinion, because Javier Fortuna is rough and tough and he can punch and he's willing. I think Ryan Garcia probably beats him, but, with Ryan Garcia, I don't know what's going on in that guy's head. He was a guy that I was looking forward to seeing on his journey to supposedly world title success. But the way he's carrying himself in the light of that win over Luke Campbell, it just put me off the guy, man. You know what I mean? I had so much hope and expectation for him, only to see him acting like an absolute diva and a real dickhead. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. Let's see.
Yeah, let's see. Like with this lightweight division, man, I was so excited. I still am with the talent that's there. But just everyone was so quick with the 4 kings and all. Oh, we got the new 4 kings and all that stuff. I'm just like, these guys need to fight each other, man. Don't put them on that pedestal yet. Let them fight and build their legacies, and then we can start talking about that kind of situation. Yeah. But now, with all this talk about money and who's the A side and, oh, I'm not fighting him yet. What does he bring to the table? I don't need a belt. I've already called the shots. All of this stuff, man, like, let's just get these guys to fight.
When you look at these guys, the lightweights, the way it's all panning out and the way some of those, because not all of them have carried themselves, because to be fair, Devin Haney hasn't carried himself like that. You know what I mean? So I think the 2 that have been the most disappointing in that regard was Teofimo Lopez and Ryan Garcia. But in many ways, what you're seeing from those guys is the epitome of boxing in 2020, 2021. Just guys, like you said, just, just capping, man. You know what I mean? All talk, all internet, all Instagram, uploading sparring sessions of them putting man on the floor and talking about how much money they're making and what cars they're driving and I made more money than you in your life. You know what I mean? It's all that sickening fanboy stuff that just really winds me up, man. And I'm sure winds you up too. And any decent boxing fan will feel utterly outraged as well. You know what I mean? It's just disgusting, really, the way these guys are carrying themselves. So to even give them that moniker, the Four Kings, is an insult to the real.
Well, some people were saying that, you know.
I know. Yeah, it's a joke. And you know, funny, right? These guys, the Ryan Garcia, who likes to parade around. Have you noticed he keeps parading around with a crown on his head? The guy's not even won a world title yet.
There you go.
And at least with Teofimo, he had one of the performances of last year when he defeated Lomachenko. So listen, you've got to give him credit for that. That was an outstanding performance. But then you're thinking that, listen, let's kick on now, man. Let's prove your greatness. And I've got no problem, incidentally, with him taking the Kambosos fight, because I happen to think that Kambosos will represent himself well in that fight. I saw Kambosos fight Lee Selby, and I was quite impressed with both his performance and his attitude, both before and after the fight. But what I'm saying is the way that these guys are carrying themselves at the moment, the way they talk and their attitude to the game, and it just disappoints me.
Yeah. Big up Scott 70 in the chat, man. He's been with us pretty much the whole way through. So shout out to him. He's put, can we get a Parker versus Tresor prediction?
Yeah.
I think it might. Tresor's not going to allow Parker to make that a sleep fight, though.
No,
sure.
You know what? I'm being a bit harsh there, man. But I just find it very hard to get turned on by any fight involving Joseph Parker just now, man. I mean, I saw his last fight. That fight, oh gosh.
Junior Farr.
Thinking about that last fight is suddenly making me feel a bit drowsy. You know what I mean? And here we go, Parker. He's landed over here. I think he's found himself
in a selfie with Fury. You know.
Yeah, he's found himself in trouble in New Zealand. I think that there's some alleged.
Yeah, I don't know about
conspiracy case. I don't want to go too much into it, but that might explain why he's decided to relocate.
Oh, he's training with Andy Lee, isn't he? That's why he took a selfie with him and Fury.
Oh, you said it some weeks ago in your show. This guy seems to have a weird man crush for
man crush on Fury. I'm telling you.
He's just, and then we get the usual stuff from him. Yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Then you get in the ring and he'll just flatter to deceive once again. So, yeah, in answer to your question, I am not excited by that Parker Chisora fight. I'd love to see Derek just knock him out and get rid of him out of boxing, to be honest. But you know what? Ask me nearer the time, because I'm not even trying to think about that fight. Scott,
I'm going to say I want Chisora to win. I would want Chisora to win, definitely. But I think Parker is more. I think he's much more skilled. I think he'll win on points, Parker. But that's the smart bet.
Yeah.
Scott Joseph Parker to win this. I think, I'll pick Parker on points. But I'd love to see Chisora do it. I'm not going to lie to you, man. Yeah. I'd love to see Chisora do it.
And I would add that I think Derek Chisora would be doing boxing a massive, certainly be doing me a favor if he just got rid of Joseph Parker, man. Because I'm tired of his capping, man. And I'm tired of his man crush on Tyson Fury. The guy just annoys me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Tony Belly once said, Yeah.
And look, man, like Parker, I was a fan of him, and the reason why we've got this attitude, Scott could be thinking, right, these guys don't like Scott Parker, man. But the reason why Joseph Parker, sorry. Yeah, not the Fulham manager. But the reason why we kind of got this attitude, and it's just us, do you know what I mean? I can't speak for everybody. But for me personally, the reason why I have this attitude towards him is just the whole, you're acting like your rival. Like Tyson Fury is supposed to be your rival. Do you know what I mean? You're a heavyweight, you're a former heavyweight champion. He's the current heavyweight champion. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with showing respect to, a fellow fighter. But as a boxing fan, I don't want to see you talking about a potential rival the way how you are talking about Tyson Fury. I just don't want to see it. I want to see you two fight. I don't want to see you take selfies with the guy, say, oh, what a great man he is and all that. Like, I want to see you fight him. Do you know what I mean? And like, I'm seeing you talk about how much you like the guy and Fury, man. I'm in camp with Fury. I'm taking a selfie with Fury. And don't you want to fight the guy?
I think maybe that's why he's here, man. He's got a bit of a man crush. And the other thing I would add about, which is, listen, if he wants to have a man crush on Tyson Fury, hey, man, you know what I mean? Do what you do. But what I personally find distasteful about Joseph Parker is he does all this talking. Have you ever seen this guy in a decent fight that's lived up to expectation? You know what I mean? They robbed. When he fought Andy Ruiz, they robbed Andy Ruiz blind. But okay, that was actually a half-decent fight. But you look at the fights he's had, especially since coming to this country, man. You know what I mean? The stinkers with Hughie Fury, the way he ran around the ring after chastising Joshua. He didn't show any real willingness or desire to beat Dillian. You know what I mean?
Not until the last round.
More fist with Junior Farr when the two of them afterwards were holding up each hands and congratulating themselves on what they thought was a great fight when it was one of the worst fights I've ever seen in my life. Now he's landed over here. Instead of you think, oh, he's going to fight somebody half decent to try and stick, he's picking on a 40-year-old Derek Chisora with numerous losses. To be fair, Derek did call him out, but you know what I'm saying. It's just like his career, man. It's just
he's too nice. He's too nice. He's too nice.
He's nice though. I just find him corny. And then he'll talk all this stuff, Samoan warrior, this and that, and then he'll get in there and he always flatters to deceive. He flatters to deceive probably more than any fighter I've ever seen. And like you said, given his athletic abilities, which we know are there, I just find him horrible to watch, man. I just find his whole personality corny, cheesy, and I want him out of the game. Derek Chisora, knock this man out and send him back to New Zealand. And that's right, man. To New Zealanders, man. A few who I know and I've got love for, but Joseph Parker, nah, cancelled.
Sorry, yeah, Scott. I've nothing personal against the guy, but I'm just not his biggest fan.
No, for me, it's personal. I want him gone. You could quote me on that. I want Joseph Parker gone, cancelled.
Yeah, I'm not his biggest fan, man, if I'm being honest. Big up Stefan here. He's put Triller are paying Tio so much. His demands are going to become ridiculous for future fights. Yeah, I saw what Teofimo Lopez's dad said this week. I just literally felt a little bit sick coming out of my throat. He was like the Ali comparison.
Yeah.
I was like, well, what is going on here?
What is this? What you see now? You know what I'm going to say now, right? You see the way Teofimo acts, right? You can see where he gets it from, can't you? With a dad like that. He's comparing the stance that he took against Bob Arum with what Ali did in Vietnam and against racial discrimination when Ali actually went to prison for 3 years, sacrificed the best years of his career, you know what I mean, in place of his human rights. And you're comparing what Teofimo... Knobhead. Sorry to have to swear like this, man. You know what I mean? But an absolute knobhead. And now you can see where Teofimo Lopez gets his attitude from. It's disappointing.
Yeah. It was just, oh man, I just shook my head. Head in hands movement, that was, man.
Yeah, man.
Head in hands moment.
What the hell are you talking about? And then I think to myself, now I see why Teofimo can be such a jerk when you got a dad like that. Come on, man. Where's the guidance coming from? I mean, don't get me wrong. Teofimo's a very, very good fighter. I like watching him, but some of the stuff that comes out of that guy's mouth, you just shake your head in bewilderment and think, what the fuck are you talking about? Now we know, listening to his dad. Like.
Scott 70 says here, Chisora will come forward all night, but I think Parker will bring added Kronk power and force the stoppage.
Kronk power?
I don't know, Scott.
Where was that Kronk power against Junior Farr? Where was that Kronk power against Hughie Fury? Where was that Kronk power against...
Yeah, but he's got with Andy Lee now, hasn't he? He's got with Andy Lee now. You know, the Kronk gym, you know, part of the Kronk gym set up.
I mean, listen, man, even if he beats Derek, so what in the wider scheme of things? We all know that Derek is well past his best. Derek is a character in British boxing. Derek will run his mouth to make fights. Derek's already said he's not interested in world champion belts. He's interested in money. Derek said that himself. So you beating Joseph Parker beating Derek Chisora, that doesn't register diddly squat on the world scale. Absolutely nothing. You know what I mean? So get out of here, man.
Could Parker stop him? Could Parker stop Chisora?
Well, it's possible because Derek is about 50 years old now and he's had hella hard fights. And that's no disrespect to Derek. I like Derek. But come on, man. Everybody knows that he's well into the twilight of his career. And he's been knocked out quite brutally by a few people. David Hay and Dillian Whyte, to name but two. Got stopped, quit on his stool against Tyson Fury. So Joseph Parker beating up on Derek Chisora.
Well, where's Parker?
How does he sell that? How does he sell that?
Where's Parker going? Like, where's he going? If he was to beat, if he was to beat, I remember Ian Hamilton said a couple of weeks ago, no one calls out Parker. Like, no one. I'm talking about the top. Like, no one. Not Otto Wallin. Not anyone in the top 10. Not like Dillian Whyte's already fought him, but there's no one out there really. Not even Michael Hunter. Not Hergovich. None of these guys are saying, yeah, man, let me get Joseph Parker on my resume. Do you know what I mean?
You know why it is, though? You know why? Because none of them take him seriously, like me and you. No one takes this guy seriously. Like I said, if you got a problem with insomnia, my advice to you is an hour before bed, right? Go on YouTube, right? And download go and watch Junior Farr versus Joseph Parker. Trust me, you'll sleep like a baby tonight.
Big up Sule here. Sule seems to agree. He's put Whyte brings the crowd maximum violence. Parker brings the crowd maximum silence.
He stinks the place out, literally, man. You know what I mean? He stinks the place out. And he does it time and time and again. And we always have to put up with him with these cheesy little videos and him trash talking people and him calling himself Samoan warrior and all the rest of it. And then you get to fight night and the guy don't deliver. Seriously, I've rarely come across a fighter that over promises and under delivers so much. Name me one.
Adrian Broner.
No, I'm not. No. To be fair to Adrian Broner, man, Adrian Broner's been in with some real serious guys, and he's, you know what I mean. Okay, he's not the fighter he was, but you know he was, according to Adrian Broner, the first person to win titles at 4 different weights. So I guess we've got to give him that. And he was an exciting fighter on the come up, wasn't he, Broner?
On the come up, yeah.
On the come up, he was very exciting and very entertaining. Nah, man, completely different to Joseph Parker.
Conrad has said here, Parker may go to jail. And
Stefan has me there, but I'm not going to go down that route.
Stefan has said here, Parker is a good fighter. Seems like a nice guy as well. Look, if I'm being honest, he does. I know what Laurie's going to say, but he seems like a nice guy. Probably you met him at the pub. You probably think, look, man, Joseph Parker's a nice guy. So I'm not taking away anything from him personally. And Stefan's saying it here. He just doesn't have the dog in him. And as boxing fans, you want to see that. You don't want to see somebody be like a nice guy in the ring. That's not what you subscribe to boxing for. You want them to be a dog in the ring. Be a nice guy outside of it, but in the ring, I don't know, man. I don't know.
No, but you know what? He may well be a nice guy outside the ring. I'm sure Tyson Fury thinks he's a lovely guy outside the ring. But hey, my problem with Joseph Parker, and he's done this now over a number of years, is that the guy flatters to deceive. And he always seems to get chances in like higher profile fights. And he's not excelled in any of them. You tell me a fight that you've seen, Daryl. Name me one. A Joseph Parker fight that you've seen. You said, you know what, he boxed really well, or he tried his best, or it was a great fight, or anything like that. Name me one.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get Joseph Parker's resume on here, and I'm going to share it so everyone can see. And, you know, we'll have a look at it. We'll have a look at it together while we're here. So let me share my screen. Hold on, because I've just found it. This is the first time I've actually shared my screen on here. Well, let me do it. Let me do it now. Hold on. Okay. Can you see? Yeah. Can you see?
Yeah.
Can you see the resume here? Can you guys see it? Let me know. But like, what do you think? I mean, Derek Chisora, obviously that's about to happen. So that's not happened yet. Junior Farr, no. Shaundell Winters, no. I mean, he got the knockout in that, but didn't Babbage? What round did Babbage take him out?
The same guy that he made heavy weather with. Babbage absolutely walked through that guy. You know what I mean?
Alex Leopai.
Oh, come on.
Alexander Flores. Ain't that who flattened Flores? What didn't Bellew flatten him?
Listen.
Can't remember. Dillian Whyte lost to him. AJ lost to him. Hughie Fury, horrible fight. Kajanu, unanimous decision. Dubois blew him out in what? A couple of rounds, I think.
Exactly.
Andy Ruiz.
Now, I watched that Andy Ruiz fight, right? I remember getting up early in the morning because it was New Zealand time. So, you know what I mean? It was like crazy hours. And I watched that fight, man. And listen, I've got no dog in the race, but Andy Ruiz won that fight all day long. Now, that was actually a good version of Joseph Parker. You know, but he lost. You know what I mean? Like I said, since that time, I've never seen him in a fight where he has impressed me.
So since the Ruiz fight.
Shonda Winter's KO, he did finish the fight quite conclusively. I'll give him that. But that was against a poor opponent. And like I said, in all the so-called high-profile fights I've seen him in, he's always flattered to deceive. And that's my issue with Joseph Parker.
Yeah. Fair enough. I mean, like Sule's put here, but David Hayes said Tresor is looking the best he's ever seen him doing things in the gym
David Hayes,
he's never done before.
David Hayes is almost as good as promoter as he was a boxer, because he always says that about Tresor.
Yeah, it's a good salesman he is. Stefan has put here, I never get the feeling Parker leaves it all in the ring, just seems to go through the motions.
Yeah. As I said, he flatters to deceive. And what makes it even more annoying is that prior to the fight, he always talks a good game. Always portrays himself to be this Samoan warrior. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go in there. And then he gets in there and he does next to nothing. Or he doesn't empty the tank at any time or show me that he's really got a desire for the game.
Yeah. Scott has put here, Flores took a dive versus Ortiz. And he's put...
Oh, that's the guy, right? Yeah.
That's it, yeah. And Scott said here, I agree with what you're saying about Parker, but let's not forget another 5 seconds and Whyte was getting knocked out. But this is the frustrating thing. Why didn't he do that earlier?
Yeah, exactly.
Because he did have Whyte on, right? He had Whyte out of it in that round.
No, but let's be fair as well. Dillian was mad tired. Dillian was mad dog tired. Yeah. Me and you could have probably floored Dillian that last round. That's how tired he was. You know what I mean? And he still couldn't get rid of him. You know what I mean? And he still didn't give off himself. Like you said, he waited until Dillian was absolutely out on his feet with tiredness before he even showed a sliver of aggression. That's what I'm saying. He flatters to deceive.
Yeah. Big up A. Obes in the chat. He's put, if Parker boxes on the back foot, it could be a boring 116, 112. Yeah. I can see
what he will do. Fight night, that's exactly what he will do. He'll talk about that stuff before. We'll see the head-to-head with him and Derek. And, you know, Derek will be clowning him and he'll be saying, yeah, you wait, man, till we get in the ring. And then he'll get in the ring and he'll be just going round and round, flicking a jab out. And then as soon as Derek gets within 6 feet of him, he will grab Derek and wait for the referee to separate. That will be his strategy.
Conrad said, I'll keep my pillow for that Parker fight. You're not going in on Parker, man. Everyone's going in. But look, man, I have to agree with you.
He deserves it.
Go on.
No, I'm saying he deserves it. You know what I mean? Because there actually is a good fighter in there. And that's what the frustrating thing is. But this man does not have the desire for the game at the level that he should have. And at the level that he bigs himself up to be.
What about this? He says, Stefan says, Parker has a legit chin. Even you've got to concede that, surely.
Yeah, I would concede that. But then I'm not conceding it because I said earlier in my rant that physically and athletically, this guy's gifted. I've seen videos of this guy.
Very gifted.
I've seen him working out on the track. It looks like he could be part of the New Zealand track team. You know what I mean? The guy's got physical gifts, but he doesn't give of himself. And then, like I said, him and his former trainer, Kevin Barry, and then the other, he had a promoter. What's his name?
Yeah, he's the most, that guy.
Oh, you're like, bro, come on, no. If he'd have been in this country, we would have given up on him years ago. But I think maybe in New Zealand, there's not that same level or amount of fighters, so he gets disproportionate press attention, man. But come on, bro. Come on. Yeah. He's not, dude. He's not. And he never will.
Come on, Parker, man. You don't have to prove nothing to me or Laurie, but show me something, man. Do you know what I mean? Just go out there and just show me something. Please. I know you've won a top world title before, but let's see, you know what I mean? Let's see you put on a great performance against Tresor and then call out one of the top dogs. Do you know what I mean? Let's see it.
No, don't. Just see what happens already when he does that.
A. Obes has put here, I see Joseph Escobar in a new light after that story.
Man. I couldn't possibly comment on the alleged stories linking Joseph Parker to some kind of, drug activity. I couldn't possibly comment. It's alleged, I said as well. Notice I said alleged.
Big up Scott here. Scott, you don't know what sort of worms you've opened here by talking about Parker. We weren't expecting to go this long. This was supposed to have been wrapped up a good 15 minutes ago, but here we are. But anyway, let's carry on. He's put here the trainer change could unlock the key to Parker. He's only 28, I think. How old is Joseph Parker? Parker is, I don't know if he's 29, Joseph Parker. So yeah, not 30 yet.
Remember when we was in the midst of lockdown, him and his wife making some cheesy ass videos in their kitchen.
Yeah.
Bro, this is not how heavyweight champions conduct themselves, bro. And then on top of that, you go in there and you fight cheesy as well. That's so cool.
But could the trainer change help? That's what Scott's saying here. Could the trainer change be the difference?
You know what? I've heard some very encouraging reports about Andy Lee. So you know what? You never know, because I would imagine a lot of what is wrong with Parker is a mindset thing. So maybe
he's got a lot of gifts to work with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So maybe with a new coach and they change the mindset. You know what? Maybe I should reserve my judgment now that he's got a new trainer. You never know. He might come out in the fight with Derek with a whole new mindset. So, you know, maybe we should give him the benefit of the doubt and wait and see. But what I'm saying is, so far until now, he's one of the guys in world boxing that flatters to deceive more than any top fighter I've seen in a long time. He just doesn't lay it on the line. He just doesn't.
Yeah. And anyway, I think the reason why we spoke about this for so long and why we're going in on it is because he's got the physical gifts to be a lot. You know, he's got the physical gifts to do this.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. Let's see what Andy Lee can do. Let's see what he can do, man. Because I do like Andy Lee. And look, man, even though he does like Tyson Fury, you know, he's in good company. Let's just say that. So let's hope that, you know, we get a good fight on May. You're not looking forward to the card, but I don't mind it. I mean, the undercard ain't too bad for me. You know, the not competitive fights on the undercard, really. Eubank and Morrison, and I think that Taylor and Jonas, it could be okay. But yeah, for me, let's hope that the main event can deliver of some sort for me.
Okay.
Yeah. A. Obes has put here, Andy Lee was a ridiculous power puncher, so he could give Parker that killer instinct. Remember when Andy Lee was on the back foot? I forgot against what fire it was. He was hurt and he's wobbled. It was Andy Lee, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Andy Lee. I think it was one of Julian Jackson's sons.
Yeah.
Jackson was in the latest. Yeah. Knocked him.
What a knockout.
That was, looking back, that was one of Billy Joe's better performances. The fact that Andy Lee for the title. You know what I mean? Because Andy Lee on his day was a problem for anybody, man. Trust me.
Got a lot of respect for Andy Lee as a fighter, I do. Yeah.
A lot of people say he's a good coach, you know. So, you know, to be fair to Parker, maybe that was a good choice. Because he weren't learning nothing under Kevin Barry, that's for sure.
Yeah. I think Andy Lee brings that measure of calmness. When I see his interviews and stuff, he's like, you know, when he was in the Fury camp, for example, and I saw a lot of people doing interviews for that Wilder fight and others, a lot of people were hyped, you know, talking loud and whatever, but Andy Lee always seemed to just be a lot measured in what he was saying. And I just think that he's a great reader of the game. I think he's got the potential to be a good trainer, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing as well. Let's see how he plays out. Because if he can do anything with Parker, then that will show that he is a good trainer. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, guys, we're 1 hour, 38 minutes in. We're going to wrap it up for today's show. A fantastic show, as always, man. I appreciate all of you guys in the comments. Scott, Obe, Stefan, Conrad, Lou, all of you guys, man. Much appreciated. Mohammed, everybody. Thank you for leaving your comments and making the show as good as it is. Do you know what I mean? We were supposed to wrap up about 20 minutes ago, but we're still here. And that's down to you guys. So, listen, we're not there yet in terms of the subscribers, but we're getting there. And with you guys' help, you know what I mean? We'll certainly get there sooner rather than later. So I appreciate you all. Thank you for joining the chat. And we'll be back again next week. Laurie, do you want to close it out?
No, man, you've summed it up pretty well, man. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks for tapping in. Appreciate the support. And yeah, man, look forward to seeing you guys next week.
We'll catch you guys next week, man. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the Easter break. And we'll be back next week.